And that's the thing. If you look around, why is there 1% the 1%? And it's not because if you're going to say, oh, well, because they've got blah, 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 blah. It's no, they work their butt off. And I guarantee you take all of the money, all of the success and everything away from them and give it evenly across the planet. In a year or two, those people will be right back where they were. Why? Mindset. Because you were in a mindset at a certain point and you made a decision to change. Most people don't. Most people don't make decisions. That's one of the primary things in my dating book. It's the first thing. It's like, make a decision. It can be right, it can be wrong, but you've got to make a decision.
Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. My name is Lee Davey. I am not an alcoholic. I refuse to be anonymous. I am someone that doesn't drink alcohol. I spend every waking moment of my life helping other people do the same. What's happening out there, folks? I'm currently in Los Angeles. I plan to be here until February the 9th. Which is my son's 19th birthday, by the way. And then I'm going to hop on a jet plane and I'm flying over to Jeju via Shanghai to do some work at the Triton Poker Super High Roller Series. However, as most of you will know, we've got this severe coronavirus outbreak in China, which is now finding its way around the world. Shanghai has been, a part of that. And I know that a lot of Chinese people have been to Jeju as well, celebrating. So who knows? Maybe that tournament might have to be canned, but we'll find out in the next couple of days. But so far, that's where I'm heading. What else is going on in my life at the moment? Well, feeling pretty cool, feeling pretty healthy, doing really well. My daughter's a little bit sick at the moment, so I'm not getting much sleep. I've actually got an Oura ring, O-U-R-A sleep ring. I had it for Christmas. And so I could tell you that I woke up 8 times last night, which is not great. And I've been doing that regularly. So I think if there's something that I was going to fix in my life, it would be to find a house with a second bedroom that I can put my daughter in. And so I can start sleeping. All I need to do then is find somewhere another bedroom so I can kick the wife out as well. And I'll have a lovely night's sleep. So that's what's going on in my life at the moment. What else is going on? Well, of course, we're changing. We're changing our branding. We are moving away from the truth about alcohol and becoming 1,000 days sober, the truth about alcohol. And that is continuing at the moment. You'll see change happening slowly on our website and through this podcast and at Strive. And that's because yours truly is typically doing all these things himself. So where we are at the moment, I'm currently looking at cutting off access to Strive for anybody with immediate effect, really. I'm gonna turn that tap off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to probably run our first 1,000 days sober experience within the next couple of weeks. And that experience will be catered for our current Strive members. Plus, I'll stick a note out to our email subscription list asking anybody if they want to get involved. And I extend that invitation to you, the listeners. If you want to get involved in the 1,000 Days Sober experience, then send me an email to thetruthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. Register your interest and I'll give you some more information and maybe you can hop on that bus. If you don't get involved this time round, then you're going to have to wait until April. We will not run another experience until April. And I think I'm only going to run 4 of them a year. So these things are going to be sparse. So you need to get on them when you can. So if you're interested in that, thetruthaboutalcohol@gmail.com. Give you a little bit of an example of how that will break down before I hand you over to our next guest. So basically, the experience is going to run alongside our Strive model for change, something that we call our Strive model for change. And there are 5 different changes. There's S for stuck, which is the first phase, stuck. So stuck is when people are generally not even aware that they have a problem with alcohol. And they certainly aren't aware that alcoholism is an invisible, violent, dominant belief system. And if you told them that, they'd probably think you were crazy, right? So that's the stuck phase. Then you have the second phase, which is thought. So this is where you start thinking, hang on a minute, last night I boffed everywhere for the 5th day on the trot. I blacked out. I'm not quite sure that drinking this alcohol stuff is as normal and pleasurable as people are making it out to be. So this is where the cognitive dissonance starts coming in and you start thinking is this right? Why am I drinking? And why do I want to stop? Or if you've tried, why can't I stop? So that's our thought phase. Now, the stuck phase and the thought phase will be a separate kind of phase, if you like, to the 1,000 day challenge. It's almost like a prelim, all right? So there'll be a price for that. I haven't worked out what that is yet. And basically you'll sign up for it and you will take those modules. It's going to be like 3 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. And we will work with you through the stuck and the thought phases. Now, I want everybody to go through this experience at this phase anyway. Because I want people to go through the whole 1,000 day sober experience. I think it's really important. Obviously, we're really pushing for people to come out the other end of that and be ambassadors. It's not going to be for everybody, but we really want that offer to be out there and for them to, to really take what they've learned, put it back to make a difference in the world, right? Like alcoholism, it's an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system. We are the non-dominant group. And obviously I'm not going to change that overnight, but I want to start racking up the numbers in this non-dominant group. So I want everybody to start from beginning who takes this. So what will happen after going through the stuck and the thought phase, we will then have a conversation. That will be me, your ambassador, and we'll have a chat and we'll see whether or not you're ready to go over onto phase 2. When you go to phase 2, that's where we do the work, right? So then we're now going into the research phase, which is where you're preparing and doing a lot of research. Well, we're helping you with that to take action. And then we are then going to go into the, let me get this right, the initiative phase, which is where you start to learn the truth about alcohol and you start to really understand why we drink, why the invisible, violent, and dominant belief system exists and all that kind of stuff. Then you're going to go through the vigilance phase where we talk about the awareness and we raise awareness of the truth about alcohol, both internally and externally, so you can change and create a new belief system around alcohol. Basically, instead of thinking that alcohol is normal and pleasurable, is understanding that alcohol is kind of, it's a really powerful and addictive substance, one of the top 5 most powerful addictive substances in the world. So we'll be working on that, okay? And then E is enlightenment. That is when we're no longer drinking. We're kind of really motoring towards our 1,000 days sober. And then we work with you on filling the white space, on your relationships, improving all the areas of your life in terms of nutrition, exercise, finance, money, meaning, and purpose. And we start getting stuck in on some really interesting and exciting goals, or what we'll call quests, where we will be working with you to really choose some really good stretch goals that align with your meaning and purpose and really help you together as a team to achieve those. So ultimately you can live a fulfilled life. And then hopefully at the end of that, you'll turn around and say, yep, I want a piece of this. I want to be a Strive ambassador. Help me out, Lee. Train me and teach me to help other people to understand that alcoholism is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system. So if you want a part of that, you want to get into it. Like I say, now is going to be your only chance until April. So send me an email at truthaboutalcohol@gmail.com and we will send you the instructions on how to sign up. Okay, right. Now, over to my next guest, Spike Spencer. Spike Spencer is a part of our Strive Inspirations. We've invited him on because he's an inspirational character and he lives a fulfilled life. He's actually the husband of Kimberly Spencer, who was on as a Strive Inspiration guest not long ago. And it was Kimberly who suggested that we get Spike on. I'm really glad that she made that suggestion. Spike Spencer is an internationally recognized award-winning voice actor with hundreds of roles in film, TV, animation, video games, and anime to his credit. He's a dynamic public speaker and the world's #1 master trainer on relationship sales dynamics. He's the author of FoodGame, a man's ultimate recipe for dating success. He's a certified NLP coach and a certified bank trainer with BANKCODE, which is an entity that wants to help 10 million businesses and entrepreneurs earn 10 million revenue in 10 years. And Spike's also featured in a Netflix docu-series called B.A.N.K, which was part of the Jack Canfield's Chicken Soup for the Soul production company. So without further ado, I'm going to shut the hell up and leave you in the capable hands of Spikey Spencer. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Strive podcast. My name is Lee David, but it's not about me today. It's about Spike Spencer. How you doing, Spike?
I'm extraordinary. Thank you.
Good, good. I'm going to start with an icebreaker. It's more of a Titanic-style icebreaker. I've got 5 different categories here. you can choose a category, and I'm going to throw a question at you from that category, okay?
I love it. Let's do it.
And then we'll start our conversation from that point. We've got sex, relationships, family, career, or money.
Relationships. That's my strength.
Okay, so I'll ask you a random question. You can fold twice, okay? Just in case something gets...
I see what we're doing here. All right.
Okay, let's have a look. Which of your partner's friends would you sleep with?
Oh, I'm going to pass on that one.
Okay. Who would you mind least as a partner? Oh, we've had that one before. Let's not ask that one. What's especially endearing about your partner?
Gosh, there's so many.
So many partners or so many endearing qualities?
So many qualities. Prior to, we can talk about my dating career before then and the book I wrote about it. But no, for that, it's, I'm going to say the wackiness, because I'm kind of nuts myself. And when she gets really, goofy, I'm like, it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful because you can have fun and play and be silly together. And I think that's important to bring out the childlike qualities in you.
What's your advice for somebody who's in a relationship where one partner has stumbled across the gold that is in silliness and just kind of cutting loose, but the other partner's a little bit, it feels uncomfortable, or it feels like they're not authentic if they're trying to be silly?
Yeah.
What would your advice be on that score?
Well, that's about knowledge of each other. I mean, we can dive deep into, finding out who they are at their core, which is, launch forward. Kind of the basis of my relationship sales dynamics is finding out their personality codes on multiple levels, because some people, they just aren't going to be, goofy. That's just not in their DNA. So you have to find out, what they may be goofy by just, they go, oh, and that's their, as far as they go, as far as goofy, and somebody else is like, Kermit the Frog, and those two are not going to be on the same level no matter what you do. So it really comes down to knowing really well who each other is at the core.
Okay. So would you say then that if you recognize that being silly is, something that could actually enhance your relationship, should you try to take some lessons or kind of get into that? Or are you just going to say to yourself, it's not really me, I need to find a different way of connecting?
Well, it's kind of two questions there. So, you always want to find better ways of connecting. You always want to strive to be connecting to your person, the person that you're with. However, it's not like something you can go and take a class in per se. That you can take classes, but is that going to be? They're going to show you tools, but it's got to be inherently inside of you to be funny and childlike and spontaneous. And what usually does that is something that actually lights you up, something that you really enjoy doing, and it may be something completely opposite from what your partner enjoys doing. For example, Kim does not like to go sailing. I sail like a couple times a month, and I absolutely love it. And she's just like, nope, that's your thing. Go enjoy yourself. And it just makes me happy. And I like to do that. She likes to go, shopping for shoes. And it's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my thing, but it lights her up. Or something she's doing when she's like training somebody and she's just like, yes. And I'm the same way when I'm talking like with you now, this makes me happy. I like to share, inspire and experiences and things that I've learned. And, it's when you find something that you really enjoy doing that lights you up on the inside, you're going to automatically be more magnetic and more excited and exuberant. Even if you're not an exuberant type person, the energy will be up. And when you're both up on the same energy, that's a really lovely connecting place.
I want to talk to you a little bit about previous relationships, and that there is a purpose behind it. At Strive at the moment, the other week, I posted a question on my forum. So Strive is my community forum. And it's a place where I try to help people to become comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So we have this category called Know Yourself, and I asked some really deep questions. One of them the other week was, what do you find annoying about your partner? And it was more women. I would say 100% of women came on and said what they found annoying about their male partner.
Right.
And this is the kind of question where you can have some fun, right? I get really pissed off when my husband farts in bed or whatever, right? A little bit of fun, right? But there was a real seriousness to it. To almost everybody's response was that the man was not seeing the woman. He was not valuing her. He was not respecting her. He was not providing very much value in the relationship outside of Maslow's hierarchy of, basic needs of a roof over your head, food on the table, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So when you get to that point, what do you do? Because I'm thinking that sunk costs, there's obviously low self-esteem issues coming up as well, but I'm thinking sunk costs. At what point do you say to yourself, well, I need to leave this relationship, rather than thinking, oh, wow, what would we do with the cat? What would we do with our CD collection? You've got all those books and stuff behind you. What do we do with all these books? The things that keep you stuck in a relationship. What would your advice be about changing a relationship if you're not being seen and not being valued, or getting out of one?
Well, the first thing is, if you're in a relationship, you're in it for a reason. You made a choice. And there's a reason why you made that choice. You should honor that choice, first of all, and try to improve the situation. And the only way to improve a situation is to improve yourself. And you can help, somebody else. But for this particular situation, I know a little bit about this because I've been on a lot of different podcasts, which is interesting because I wrote a book for men called FoodGame, A Man's Ultimate Recipe for Dating Success. And I've been teaching guys how to be better men to attract women for over 12, 13 years. And it's funny, though, because I have been on so many women-centric podcasts, because when they start talking to me, they're like, wow, you're not one of those guys that's like, let's game the women. No, even though it's called FoodGame, but it's about being the man. And it's about being a respectful man who, I tell people, I said, look, women are the most important thing on our planet. And they're the closest thing we have to superheroes. They can give birth, for crying out loud. They can feel pain better than men. Stronger than men. They see colors better. They can smell things better. There's so many, their senses are so much more aware than a man's. So they're looking at everything from a standpoint of so much information. And a guy doesn't quite do that overall. And I'm being very general, but this is something that I've seen this play over and over and over again. Especially in this situation, when you're in a relationship and the woman says, oh, well, he's paying for things, he's taking care of things and all that, but I'm just not getting what I need. Yeah. Something happens with men. When we're on the prowl or we're out there dating and doing things, we're a certain person. That's who we are. We need to be out there. We've got to do what we got to do. Once we get somebody that we are with, that we fall in love with, there's a shift that happens. And that shift goes from being hunter to provider protector. And so when people say, well, I don't think he loves me anymore, he is going, the very, very service that he is providing is him showing love. And when we get to the gratitude area of life, it's like sometimes you take things for granted after a while and you forget that is how he's showing love, because that's kind of like in our DNA. We hunt, then we protect. So men will do that and think that, that's it. Yes, they need to do more. I'm going to agree with the women on that. Yes. Because there's a stagnant situation that happens once a man gets to here, let's say, and he's providing, he's protecting, everything is good. He's like, okay, I've got that taken care of. But sometimes the woman keeps going and striving for better relationships, better info, better, I want to better myself on this. And he's like, well, I'm working so hard here that I'm pretty good. We're solid, but he's not going up here a little bit. It's not meet her. When she's up here, he's down here. This is where the problems happen right there. Okay. So it's Kaizen. It's basically always constant, never ending improvement, striving to be a better human being. And a lot of that comes down to listening and, dealing with a relationship on a level with really solid communication. And that's kind of where a lot of people get into trouble because they don't know how to do that.
Or they listen to something like this and they continue self-growth. So they continue reading books, going on podcasts, going on their own personal training courses.
Right.
But the guy's not really doesn't want to get into it. He'll say things like, "Well, that's your thing," or "I don't think we need to do this."
Right.
So I can see that in my own personal relationship, I'm fortunate that I can work on myself. And if I change my energy, I kind of transmute really well to Liza and she will react. But I can see it in other relationships where it's the other way around, where the guys are just not getting into it. Do you know what I mean? So at some point you've got to get them involved, right? I guess.
Yes. And that's where I come into the personalities and values and strategies of representational systems and like neuro-linguistic programming, the BANKCODE, Enneagram. There's so many different tests and things that you can put together with each other and find out, how you could be saying one thing, thinking you're communicating, and they're not hearing it at all, or they're hearing a completely different message. And that will mess you up. Because you're like, well, I told you this. And it's like, no, you did not. And that, boom, fight. Now, why is that? Because she did tell you this and you did hear it, but you heard it in a different language. So what you heard was if your love languages are different and her love language is, for example, her love language is words of affirmation. Well, if your love language is acts of service, there can be some disconnects there because as an act of service love language, if she gives you a affirmation, you're like, well, did I earn it?
Yeah.
And if I didn't earn it, then why are you telling me that? It's not congruent. So it causes friction.
We use the color code personality test to Strive, but I don't think we're using it expansive enough. I think we're doing the test and going, oh yeah, I'm a red, I'm a yellow, I'm blue, and what does that mean about my personality? But we're not then taking that home and saying, hey hubby, hey wifey, let's get into this. And Ray Dalio's book Principles touches on the importance of personality testing. So we're gonna push that forward a little bit more on Strive, I think. On relationships, what were your relationships like as a kid, as you was growing up? Your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your mates. What type of kid was you, and how did that shape you become the wonderful human being you are today, Spike?
Well, it's really interesting because, anybody that has a past, which we all do, there's a story that you tell yourself about that past. And I feel that I've been very, very open and honest about my past. For example, my father was an alcoholic, and he wasn't abusive physically, but he was abusive emotionally to my mother. And that affected me deeply when I was a kid, because I remember being on the floor, sleeping in my mom's room, me and my brother, and him coming in and just, railing and blah, blah, blah. And it made no sense to me why he was doing that. And to this day, I really don't know what happened between them or why that happened. But it affected me deeply. I was very, frightened, and I loved my father. I wanted his love, but I never respected him. And I think that actually helped me be more respectful in my life, because he said things that I remember one thing that he told me. He was talking to my brother, and my brother was in high school, and I was just getting ready to start high school. And he was talking about how my brother was seeing some girl, and I'm like, okay, they're going together, we're going together, going steady or whatever it was back then. And, my brother was kind of asking him for some advice because he kind of liked another girl or whatever. My dad said, well, there's no ring on your finger, so do whatever you want. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And here I am, like I'm 8th grade or something like that. No, hold on a second. Did you give her your word? Yes. Then that's it. You're done. Your word is your bond. You said it. Otherwise, you're not being true to yourself. You're not being true to her. You're being a liar. And that's what was in my brain. So I totally disrespected my father right there. I mean, I lost all respect for him at that point. There were other things down the road that I lost more respect for him. And my parents got a divorce not far after that. And I was 13. And, it was I still remember the day. I still remember exactly where it was in our house. And we lost everything. We lost absolutely everything. It was 81 or 82, somewhere around there. My dad was a landman, oil. So, and there was a big glut and all kinds of things happened. So a lot of people had issues then. And so we lost everything. And they divorced, and I moved away with my mother to Houston from Oklahoma. And I remember it was like she was saying, well, you can either stay here with your father, or you can, and before she even finished the sentence, I was in the car honking the horn. We're going, Mom. Let's go. We're going to Houston. Because I'm like, I am out of here, And so I just said, sorry, we got a helicopter coming by real quick here. And I knew it was going to be difficult, and it was hard for the family to be apart. But even at 13, I was like, this ain't going to work. I just saw it, and I knew it. And so then I went and was with my mom, from then on out. And, there were some rough times there, but I always respected my mom, and I was a good kid overall. I never got caught. But I was pretty good. I was, I'd come in on time, and if I was going to be late for curfew, I'd let her know. I respected her, and we didn't have, much money at all. And that has played a role in my life. Money, issues in the mental side, and that happens with a lot of people. So that's ongoing work. But as far as relationships go, that has been the most integral relation that I've had is the one with my father. That's the one I've had to do the emotion work on. That's the one I'm doing. I'm still doing, work on that to this day. And I always do, because there's always little bits and pieces that your subconscious will remember. It's like, wow, why did I just react that way? And you go back and test it and figure it out. And you're like, oh, because when I was 4, this happened, and yada, yada, yada. And you clear it, and it's gone. So did that answer your question?
It did indeed. And it makes me think of, so many people mire themselves in kind of the treacle of the past, right? They cannot get out of the past because they keep thinking to themselves, I am this way because this happened, et cetera, et cetera. But when I listen to you talk, and we were only just briefly covering it, and you say, I found that my father treated my mother disrespectfully, and then so I couldn't respect my dad. But then that turns into respect becoming a core value for you as a youngster, or certainly an important value as a youngster. So how important is it, and talk about this a little bit, about when we are revisiting the past, that we try to look for a way to the positive out of the negative. So instead of saying, like somebody else could have said, I never had a father figure when I was younger. My dad was really disrespectful, so I didn't learn how to respect, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like negative, pessimistic, cynicism. But you're saying, oh, no, I learned something really valuable out of this thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure the divorce would have been terrible and horrific as well. You didn't have a father figure in your life, but you would have something beneficial would have come out of that. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, there's two things that I can touch on here, and it really starts with neuro-linguistic programming, which, if you don't know, NLP, it's kind of the basis for all of Tony Robbins' work and so much work around the world. And there's a concept called cause and effect. Now, if you are at cause, you are in charge. You're responsible for your life. If you are at effect, you're a victim of everything that happens to you in your environment. So, and this is a choice that you have to make. Most people that blame others, they are 100% at effect. So they are in victimhood status. And it's very difficult to get some of them out of there. That's what a lot of the training that I do with people, it's like, wow, you are really stuck over here. And you don't realize that it is your choice to be stuck there. And once you realize that at least, hey, that is a choice that I am making, you're starting to move over to the cause side. And the way it works, if, for example, if you've read, I want to say The Big Leap, I think it was, with Gay Hendricks, great book. And it had discussed this a little bit. And it said, I hope I'm getting the book right. I think that was the one. I've read quite a few.
I can see.
Actually, those aren't all mine, but I've read a bunch. But when you are in any relationship, any confrontation, you have to stop and say, okay, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for this situation. That, when you do that, you are coming from a place of strength and understanding. If you come from a place of, well, it's not my fault, it's your fault, even 10%, you're not at strength. You're blaming somebody else, and therefore you're swaying in the wind. You're like that bag that floats in the wind at oh, where's it going to go? Who knows? Because the wind's blowing this way. Whereas if you're like the flagpole, you're right there. You are staying right there. The wind can blow all at once, but you're going to be right there. You are strong and sturdy and planted. And if you are not 100% at cause, then you are at effect. And when people start blaming their past, well, you can go back and you can say, I know people who have had 10 times worse a situation, and look at them over here.
Yeah.
Why is it they can go the same or worse and yet be over here and be happy and be successful and all of that when you had maybe 1/10 of the problems they had, but you are just completely mired down? It's all in your mind. And one thing that I was listening to at a empowerment summit, it was Michael Uslan, who was the producer of Batman, the original Michael Keaton Batman, and all of them coming up from there. He's the reason we have Batman. Right. I mean, really, truly, it's an amazing story. And he said his mentor at the time, and he was shooting for like 10 years, he was trying to get Batman made. The real Batman, like the Dark Knight, not the, Watusi Batman craziness, right? And because that was his vision, and he stuck to it. And his partner / mentor, whenever something would happen and everything would go haywire, he said, all right, you're in this situation right now. Ask yourself this question, or say it to this way. This is the best thing that ever happened to me because, and then start writing it out. Why is this the best thing? Why is this the best thing? No matter what it is, why is this the best thing? And you're going to come up with something, and you're going to think in a different way. If you're at effect, you're just like, why me? Why me? Why God? Why me? Wah. And I've been there. We've all been there.
Yeah. This, what you said there segues nicely into something else. So let me see if I can use my skills to knit it together. Okay. So you're talking about the need to take 100% responsibility for your life and your choices, right? But then the first thing that comes up in my mind is, wow, I was 35 years of age before I even learned that, right? So there's 35 years have gone by, and I'm not even thinking those questions. So for me, I always remember being, I don't remember at the time, but I remember now in hindsight that I was stuck on the path of least resistance. So if we take Joseph Campbell's story archetype, I was in an ordinary world. And that ordinary world was a 3,500 population Welsh mining valley, okay, where you didn't think, you wasn't taught about emotions, you wasn't taught communication, you wasn't taught to think bigger than working down the pit, or get a job as a trash man. So for me, I'm always fascinated in how do you go from the ordinary world in Campbell's archetype to the special world? Because when you get to the special world, or at least you start to think and see there's a special world, now you start to get involved into self-growth, you start reading books, you listen to podcasts, and now these questions start to come up, right? So I'm interested in what, you've talked a little bit about your quote-unquote ordinary world and your trip off to Houston. When was the first time you experienced a special world, and what have your special worlds been from then moving forward till today?
That's an interesting question. So my special world, I'm not sure I get that question, but I do know what you're talking about, being in that space.
I'll give you my example, and it might.
Yes, please.
I am very terrible at putting things into question.
Oh yeah, you're great.
My ordinary world was I was a railwayman. I was a railwayman for 20 years. I knew how to run railways, and I did it very, very good, right? I was excellent railwayman, got to a very, very high profile level. I had a big house. I had a beautiful wife. I had a lovely son. I had a great car. I was well respected where I was. I had a great social life. That was my ordinary world.
Right.
Then I stopped drinking alcohol. Right. Now, straight away, as I stopped drinking alcohol, I see a special world where people don't drink alcohol, but I'm the only member, right? And then I quit my job. Then I decided to travel around the world to be a professional poker player. Now I'm in a real special world because I'm going to Monte Carlo, I'm going to Paris, I'm going to Barcelona. And everybody in my ordinary world are looking, thinking, what the fuck's happened to this guy? Like, he's so that is my, like, Harry Potter jumping on the Hogwarts Express moment. Yeah. Yes, is what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Success is not normal. And that's the thing. If you look around, why is there 1% the 1%? And it's not because if you're going to say, oh, well, because they've got blah, 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 blah. It's no, they work their butt off. And I guarantee you take all of the money, all of the success and everything away from them and give it evenly across the planet. In a year or two, those people will be right back where they were. Why? Mindset. Because you were in a mindset at a certain point and you made a decision to change. Most people don't. Most people don't make decisions. That's one of the primary things in my dating books. Is the first thing. It's like, make a decision. It can be right, it can be wrong, but you got to make a decision, and you follow it through. And those decisions are going to be based on what's in your heart. It was in your heart. You knew it. You was like, there was something pulling you in a different direction, and whatever that was, it's like, why have I wanted to be? For example, I knew I wanted to be an actor from the 10th grade. I mean, I've always been outgoing and kind of loopy and fun, and I loved theater or whatever. But I got into acting because I wanted to be a lawyer, because that's where the money was, because I wanted money. And I got the lead role in the first play I ever tried for in high school. And as soon as the applause went up at the end, I was done. I was like, this is what my heart wants.
Right.
The money thing is like, well, yeah, we'll work on that, but this is what it fed my soul. So then performing, I've been doing it for 30 years. But, I also said, I need something else. And I want to be up on those stages like Tony Robbins and Les Brown and all of those speakers. And I started early on. I was Tom Cruise in Cocktail, basically. I was bartending, and I had all the success books under the thing, and I'd make drinks and everything, and then I'd be over there, nothing's happening. I'm reading my books, okay, this is real estate investment. This is dealing in commodities, or this is rolling stocks or whatever. And I'm trying everything because I believed. I said, I'm getting out of there. You got out of there. You believed. You said, this is what I want to do. I mean, what an amazing turn from railway to poker. I want to hear more about that, my friend.
Well, so, I keep going back to Ray Dalio's principles because it's the book I'm reading at the moment, so it's fresh in my mind. Right, sure. And he talks about how important it is to help people to learn to make decisions. Like, how you make decisions is so important. And he goes at it at a whole new level that I've never even thought about. Like, he's like computerizing and artificial intelligence, all this kind of stuff about how you make your decisions. Yeah. For me, I remember the time period when I was considering leaving the railway to become a poker player so I could earn the time, freedom, and the money to help people quit alcohol. It was the most liberating and most terrifying moment of my life, because going back to what you said about the hunter being the carer, if you like, is a man in a relationship. I think if I was single, those decisions would have been less terrifying, because right. It wasn't a question of will I succeed. It was a question of, if I don't succeed, how am I going to provide for my family? Exactly. And then the whole status issue, like, how could I maintain my house? How can I maintain this? So I guess my question for you, Spike, is I noticed that you're successful in so many different areas, a polymath, if you will, right? So right. Your decision-making skills must be more advanced than, like, I don't know if you're in the 1%, but you know what I mean? You're kind of up there more than down here. So how do you manage the fear around decisions and just almost like Susan Jeffers just fucking doing it anyway? Yeah. And how has that changed over life as you've grown and evolved,
That's an interesting question, because it does take work. Decisions take work. And after a while, you get to the point where, that inner voice that talks to you when you make a decision, does it feel right? And after a while, you start to respect that, because your unconscious registers everything from every moment of your life. Our conscious level is that much. I mean, it's just the layer of our life. And yet most of us live in that conscious state where we're thinking, I'm going to make this decision because of this and this and this. And then you fly off the handle at some weird thing that makes no sense, but yet your emotion brings it up. And we don't give enough respect to that emotion. And it doesn't have to be like a raging emotion, but when you sit to yourself for a second, and there's a lot of heart work that is being done now, and science is just starting to really, really validate the woo-woo side of the subconscious and unconscious and all of that. So when you have the point where you say, you know what, I respect my feelings. I've made decisions and I don't even know why I've made those decisions, but I'm like, this feels right. I need to do this. I mean, have you ever been, you're walking along and you go, I have to turn right. We walk along, I have to buy that. I have to, and you're like, what, where did that come from? But you just know you have to do that. And that is usually revealed to you later on, and you're like, oh, if I hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened. Then I wouldn't have met my wife or something like that. When you really go back and dissect it all, you're like, wow, that's crazy. But it's very, very interesting how that happens. And I think most people second guess themselves far too much. It's been noted many times, like in test taking, like multiple choice. You take it and you go, oh, okay, that's the one. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to go back and change that. And you go back and you change that. And then you find out later on, guess what? The first one was the right one because it felt right. It happens very, very often. And I think that people don't respect themselves and their unconscious enough in making decisions.
What if the little voice in their head, we call it resistance at strive. What if the resistance is, like for me, I had this little voice saying, Lee, you're special. You need to make a difference in this world. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a narcissistic kind of like you're special. Do you know what I mean? It's like, Lee, you really need, you're here for a purpose to do something greater than you are. And although I was terrified, it kept saying to me, you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you've got to do this. Like my gut kept telling me, you've got to do this, right? Based on the fear, actually, of the status quo. Like I'm terrified of the status quo. Like I got to stay in this job. I got to stay in this relationship. I got to stay in this environment. And that was like pushing me on. But what if like most people who have got, who are mired in alcoholism, the resistance is not telling them to do these things. The resistance is saying, do not change your environment. Do not change your job. Do not change your partner. Because as much as your life is a complete mess right now, and as terrible and painful as it is, you can handle it, right? What advice would you give to those people?
Yeah, it's the devil syndrome. You're there and you're stuck. It's like being in quicksand. Warm, wonderful, comfortable quicksand. You know it. You know that quicksand. And over there, it's beautiful. There's amazing things happening over there, but you have to get out of that quicksand. And it might be cold for a little while, and there might be some prickly stuff that you got to go through, but on the other side, that's really great. And especially if you're mired in addiction and alcoholism, all the dopamine is firing in the pit. And if you're normal and you're not under that, your desire is telling you it's a gift from God. You're given a desire for a reason because you can do it. It's like one of my favorite little metaphors is it comes from The Science of Getting Rich. I think it's Wallace Wattles or William Wattles, something like that. And it is an amazing book, and I read it like over and over again. I'll go back to it and read it every day for a month, and then go away for a while. But there's one little story, and he says there's a child at a piano, and he's plinking on the piano, and the adult comes over and says, what are you doing? He goes, there's a song in me. I know it. I just can't do it yet. That's a desire. He has that desire. Anything you love to do, there's a desire that's been put into you for a reason. You may not be the best in the world at it, but I mean, like I have no desire to play basketball. I'm not good at it. But can I get on stage and inspire and make people laugh and have fun and learn? Yes. And that's an innate desire in me. I've always been able to do that. Just hop up on stage and go, hey, what's going on? And I love to do that. And it's hard when you're under the effect of something like alcohol or drugs and all that. It just nulls everything.
Or just for me, I wrote a little 5-minute speech that I'm going to try and get on the Moth. And one of the things I said that was most tragic about my life when I was on the path of least resistance was the most tragic thing was not that I was as an addict. It was that I didn't have the ability to think. Like I literally was just a zombie, right? Which is terrifying. two things come out of what you've been talking about there that I think are really important, and I'd like you to expand upon in your life, because that could give us some inspiration. When we're talking about making decisions, and we're talking about, in one hand, an inner voice driving you on to overcome that fear, and on the other hand, the inner voice telling you to stay doing what you're doing because it's kind of like locked in with that fear. Two things come up. One is failure, how people cope with failure, and two is relationships. So, for example, once you come onto Strive and you start talking about the fact that you don't really want to achieve these goals because you've got an issue, now you can start to listen to other people who've done that, because you said there's a wonderful world over there out of this quicksand, but not a lot of people can feel it. They might be able to intellectualize and see it, but they can't feel what it's going to be like, So talk a little bit about your failures and how you reacted to them, and how important you think they're in life, and then how you network and grow a tribe around you of like-minded people.
Okay. Well, a couple of things you said: failure, relationships, and network. So real fast, failure is a relationship. You have a relationship with failure. What is that relationship? Is it a loving relationship, or is it a get away from me relationship kind of thing? You have to, when you personalize things, you get it. Like you had talked about, like failure is always, there's a question that something's going to be a failure. I'm going to do this. I want to get out of this quicksand and go over there. But if I do, all this comfort, all my friends, everything could change. And so a lot of times what's happening is that failure is an inner voice. That failure is a friend trying to keep you safe. Sometimes that voice of failure is your mom, your wife or husband, or somebody that is very, very close to you. And that's hard to get away from, to break away from, because that is a relationship that you have with failure. And what you have to do is you make that decision we talked about before, and you tell failure, thank you. Thank you for trying to protect me. I appreciate that. Now, and I forgot who was it said this metaphor. It said, now I'm in the car and I'm driving. You're no longer driving. As a matter of fact, you're not even in the passenger seat. You're not in the back seat telling me what to do. Get in the trunk. And I'm driving. And if I need you, I'll come open up the trunk and we'll talk. So it's like telling failure to get away, because failure is a learning experience. Every failure I've had, which have been numerous, I've learned something. And if I haven't, if it hurts me in my heart, then that's where some therapy comes in. That's where you have to do some, emotion work or NLP stuff or timeline therapies, things like that. There's plenty of things you can do, but you have to face it. And it's not about going and reliving it. You don't even have to do that. But it's about respecting it and going, okay, that's a failure. What that means is that's a lesson. What am I learning from that lesson? Write that down. And then don't do it again. It's very simple. You put your hand on a stove, it's going to burn. You're going to scream. Are you going to do it again? Probably not. But yet so many people, they don't get that lesson. And they keep going, ow, what the, ow, well, I don't, ow. Why are you doing that? It doesn't make sense. So they're not learning that lesson. So when you get to the point where you make a decision, I'm going to learn from every failure that I've had. That is when you're going to pop up to the next level. So go take that to the relationship side. In relationships, understand it's a two-way street. It's not just you. You can do the best you can. You can do with everything you have in your heart, in your mind, in your vast array of knowledge, and do the best you can. And it could still blow up. That's what happened to me. You want to share personal? I'll tell you, I lost everything. I was an actor. I was a real estate investor in around 2005. I flipped over 60 properties on my own. I had 15 properties at the time. I had a 4,000 square foot house with a dojo and a pub, beautiful wife, 3 dogs. And I had just finished my 5th film. I've been on screen with 4 Academy Award nominees. 2 of them won. Hollywood doesn't care. Just side note. But that's where I was. Things were looking pretty good. And I didn't realize what was happening. With all my heart, with all my soul, I loved her. I loved my first wife. And I was doing everything I could to make her happy. I couldn't. It wasn't up to me. It's up to her. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to give that power away and say, well, I'm doing everything I can do. And it didn't work out. She had an affair with my best friend. And I literally lost everything I knew and loved. Bankruptcy, divorce, lost the house, lost dogs, lost everything, and moved to LA knowing 4 people. Now that was scary at 35 because I was like, I thought it was all taken away from me. I wasn't going to have children now. My life was over. So what I had to do, and this took a little while. I mean, I'll be honest. I was drunk quite a bit. For a while, I was in the effect mode. I was like, why me, why me, why me? And then I would be bouncing back and forth, trying to be at cause, trying very hard. And it's very, very difficult when you're in the mire, when you're in that quicksand that, I would say this is actually a different quicksand. Now the quicksand is on fire and it's bubbling. And you're like, I need to get out. I know it's over there. I have to get out. And you're trying to get out. And it's very difficult. So trying to become at cause is hard. But once you look back at it, and I had to look back at it and say, all right, how did I cause all of this? Man, when you're in it and you ask yourself that, you're telling yourself to go screw yourself. You're like, it's not your fault. It's not you. And you're like, no, calm down, me. How was I the one who made this happen? It takes a little bit of time to get there. But once you take ownership of it all, you go, okay, I'm in charge. Now this all happened. Great. Was it my fault? If it was, I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody. You can do a ho'oponopono, all sorts of different ways of doing it, deconstruction, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to stand in it and say, okay, how did I do this? And once you do that, there's a shift that happens. It may not happen overnight, but it's going to happen, and you're going to be in a better place, and you're going to be able to start to move on. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it can take a minute. It's hard.
I think that's why these podcasts are so important and these conversations are so important, because if you think about it, I keep thinking to myself, we need to go back deeper. We need to go back deeper. We need to explain to people how they're able to overcome failure, blah, 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 blah. Where is the secret formula? But if people are listening to this, they're already got one foot out of the quicksand, or as we say in Strive, they're already starting to grow accustomed to leaving Plato's cave, right? They can see the light and it's hurting them, but they're here. So when you turn around and say you lose everything in your life, and then you turn around and say, after a period of grief and just pure old case of the fuck it's, right? You then wake up and say, okay, how did I actually create this mess?
Yes.
Like for me, that's an advanced question, right?
It is.
But if you're listening to this podcast, now you can say to yourself, because you will be in this, everybody listening to this podcast will be in their own little cave in some area of their life. And they can now ask that question. And I think it's magical when you have people around you that can help you. Even if it's just like, I'm going to ask this question right now and I need you to support me while I do, because I'm worried I'll fall apart,
Yeah. Yes. You can't, it's hard to do it alone. And one thing I've told people is, look, this is a tunnel that you're going through, and it's hard. It's hard. But guess what? You can't go around it. You can't swim up over it. You can't go around. You have to go through. Once you get that and you go, okay, how can I go through this strongly, confidently, learning from this situation? There's going to be bumps along the way. There's going to be cuts, scrapes, all kinds of things that's going to happen. But you have to get through that. Some people never make it through. And that's when they get stuck in that hole, and once you get through the other side and you see, you go, okay, now I know. And a lot of times when people go through that, like myself, you say, okay, I can turn around and I can help pull other people through that tunnel because I've been there, and if you've been, as you say, like with AA or different substance abuse things, that's what sponsors are for. They're here to pull you out, to help you. And from all the training that I've gone through and all the personal stories and everything that I've gone through, I know I can help people. I've been in front of thousands of men, helping them become better men, internationally speaking. And they're like, wow, I didn't even think of things that way. You and me doing these podcasts and reading all the books and everything, we take for granted all of the things we know. And we think everybody knows it, and they don't. As a matter of fact, Kim is my wife is a certified high performance coach with Brendan Bouchard, and I've trained with him a little too. And he says, to a kid that cannot tie their shoelaces, the fact that you can makes you a genius. Mm-hmm. And I've been through more than most in many cases, and losing absolutely everything at 35, then coming back and becoming a success in so many ways. I have an most amazing wife. I mean, holy moly. And our little 2-year-old boy, I had my son at 48, my first boy, and we're going to have another baby. I mean, like I'm 50 now, and I feel like I'm like, okay, great. I'm 25, I'm young. I'm she keeps me spry and all of that. But there's always, when you get to the other side, there can be success. And most of the time, and I'll be the first person to tell you, this is an ongoing process. I beat myself up more than anybody else in the world, and my wife does it too. So I'm like going, usually that heavy weight that you're feeling on your back is you. And once you go, oh, hey, me, great. You give it a name. It's like, hey, Lyle, why are you on my back? And Lyle's like, I'm here to protect you, fella. You're like, wait a minute, get off my back, Lyle. I'm good with this. Why don't you get down and help me pull the sled? Well, okay. He gets down, and then you're both working together, because it's fun when you put it in that personalized arena, when you give your fear a name, give your pain a name, give it something, and then tell it to fuck off,
Yeah. There'll be people listening to this who have been trying to stop drinking for a decade or more, who are not being recognized or respected by their wives or their husbands, who are continually questioning their career choice, their value, meaning, and purpose, worrying that they don't know what it is, worrying that they do know what it is, but they're too afraid to make a decision. And I just want to say something about my personal life to add to what Spike just, was very gracious enough to share. On Saturday night, I went to a sound bath in a cathedral somewhere in LA. And I go into this cathedral, and there's amazing, Jesus Christ is in the middle. I'm not religious, right? But Jesus Christ is in the middle. And there's this amazing, trippy light show going on. And then, I don't know, about 50 to 100 yogis all sitting down, chilling out. And I was desperate to fart. And I thought, I can't do it in here, Spike. So I went outside to break wind. And I turned around and looked at this great scene and all these people walking in and out. And I said to myself, 10 years ago, I was married to a completely different woman, head over heels in love, with a child, with no way in the world of ever having another kid because she didn't want one. Right. I was stuck in a little valley of 3,500 people with one Chinese restaurant takeaway, an Indian takeaway. I was the only Asian person in the valley. There was only one black person in the valley. I had a job which my only goal was, I can't wait to get to 55 so I can fucking leave, right? Yeah. And now here I am in LA going to a sound bath, married to a Korean American woman with a 3-year-old Korean American English Welsh Chinese child,
right?
And I'm going to have a sound bath, and then I'm going to speak to Spike, and then I'm going to Las Vegas to do a TV show. I mean, what the fuck? How did that happen, right? To me, flesh and blood Lee, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I ask you this question because I know it happened for me, Spike, is in the midst of all that agony and anguish and knowing that you've lost everyone, I had an enormous sense of liberation. It was like, oh, I could do what the fuck I like because my responsibilities have changed. So the magic question is, how can you get that sense of liberation when you still have responsibility?
Well, when you still have responsibility, I mean, you've got responsibility, yes. But what is that responsibility? Is it a responsibility or is it an honor? It really is how you look at things. When Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So if you feel, again, like what your responsibilities are on your back, take them off your back, talk to them and say, all right, what is this? Like, for example, I was paying some bills that I couldn't even afford right now, right? So I've got some financial issues going, and I'm looking at one of them, and then one of them was it's a SAG after Screen Actors Guild, and I've been a member for like 15 years or whatever. And I'm looking at it, I'm like going, why the hell am I paying this? I don't want to pay this bill. What the blah blah blah. And I switch my thinking. I go, hold on, hands to the heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude. It is an honor that I am able to do that, because there are hundreds of thousands of wannabe actors that are coming and saying, how can I be in that union?
Yeah.
And so I had to be grateful for it. I had to think about that. It's like, wow, that's an honor. So that's good. So I changed the way I thought about it. And then I wrote the check. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I have faith that the universe is going to give me the money that I need to cover all my bills, and I got some big ass ones because I got some real estate stuff going on. That's like, nah. But you know what? It's an honor. It's a lesson. Everything is happening. And I wanted to jump off, because when you said, now you've changed and you're at the sound bath and all that, it's such an interesting trek that once you start down the road of self-improvement, the moment you open up that first book and start to read and start to feel better about yourself and start to expand your knowledge, you're already doing it. You're doing it. You're on that path of Kaizen. And so that's an amazing aspect. And when I got clear, whenever I got out to LA and had my blah, blah, blah for a little while, just completely off my nut and drinking, and I said, all right, that's enough. What do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? And it came down to, I want to travel the world, I want to eat great food, and I want to have fun. And then my friend, like literally like a couple of days later, my friend, she goes, you're kind of famous, right? And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, the voiceover stuff that we've been doing out of Houston for all these years, dubbing Japanese anime into English, well, that's become a big deal. And there are conventions all over the world that will fly you out and pay you to sign autographs for your fans. I'm like, I have fans? Cool. I had no idea. And I said, okay, how do I do that? She goes, well, I don't know. Let's look at things up. So I started looking them up, and I swear, like 2 years later, I did 8 countries and 25 cities. I was being flown around the world to sign autographs, be treated like a rock star. I got to see all these famous people. I shook Stan Lee's hand. I mean, I'm like, holy moly. And I'm like, a year ago, I was like just completely devastated, thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? And it turns out I was doing what the other 2 people who messed up my life, if I were going to be in the effects side, I was doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
I think that's another massively important point. So I always say to, like, Strive at the moment is 20 people in Strive. I think it's an absolutely golden, intimate place. Like the impact that we make on people's lives is incredible.
Yeah.
Yet I know, if I handed it over to, if I handed it over to Brendan Burchard tomorrow, he would make it a multi-billion-dollar business that affected multi-millions of people around the world. Why? Yeah. Right? Why? Because he knows how to do these things that I don't know. He has skills and he can ask the questions that I don't yet have, right? And I think that what you talked about there, when you said, your friend said to you, oh, you do know that you could do this, right? So I remember being at an Effective Altruist Summit in San Francisco.
Keep going, Lee. I've got to move this because I'm about to die. My computer's about to die.
Shift it. And one of the themes of the conference was you had to sit down next to people. Obviously, they're all strangers. And you had to say to them, can you help? How can I help you? So this guy says to me, how can I help you? And I said, well, I got this thing, Strive. I got this training course and nobody's paying for it and I can't help anybody. So I want help knowing how to shift my training courses and influence more people and get paid for it. And he said, so what do you do on a daily basis? And I said, I work in the poker industry. Poker? He said, yeah. I said, the high stakes poker. I work in the high stakes poker industry. You work in the high stakes poker industry? Yeah. So you're surrounded by a lot of people with a lot of money, right? I said, yeah. Oh, have you ever thought about asking one of them to give you a lot of money so you can help these people strive? And I said, no. He said, do that then. So we had a break. I texted 3 people and one of them came back and said to me, how much do you need? how much do you need? And I remember I said to him, 18,000. And he said, okay. And he gave me the money, and that money allowed me to run, no, it was 8,000. It allowed me to run the first couple of courses and give it away for free.
Yeah.
And, but I'd never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, again, going back to who we surround ourselves with, did you ever have a time in your life where you looked around and was like, I need to get rid of these people? Or in hindsight, do you look back and think that was a really bad time for me being around those people?
Well, there's also another part of that. If you change, a lot of times the universe is going to change where you are. And, I was, who I was, even though I had this idea in my first marriage. I wanted to write the dating cookbook. I wanted to be a speaker and all these sort of things. And I couldn't have done it where I was. It wasn't going to happen. Now I'm married to Miss Sparkly Amazingness, and she's doing that as well. So we're both like, it's like, oh my God, people are like going, you guys are like an amazing couple. I'm like, I know. How did that happen? Oh, the road was hard and littered with bodies, but it's there. And that is, it happens. And one of my favorite metaphors or stories is the father and his son walking on the beach, and they're putting crabs in a bucket. And the father looks down. The son says, "Oh my gosh, the crabs are almost at the top of the bucket. They're going to get all over." And the father says, "No, look, son, the crabs are like human beings. Once one crab gets ready to get over the edge of the bucket and go to freedom, the other ones are going to grab him and pull him back down." And that's what was happening. It's like going, wow, that's very negative looking, but it's true. If you look at it, people, even though, like we talked about before, they want to keep you safe, they also want to keep you next to them. Because as long as everybody in your realm is all safe together and they can sit and watch TV or sports and drink and bitch about the government or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay, well, what are you doing about it? Well, nothing, man. Okay, bye. There's nothing happening there. And I stopped. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the radio. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't care. Because I know how I would vote, period. So the vote comes on, whatever. But how do you make a difference? Get out there and make a difference. Sitting there watching TV and bitching about it isn't making a difference. But going out and sharing ideas and inspiring people, that makes a difference.
Yeah, I was in the influencer seminar recently in San Diego, and your wife was stood in front of the line with me and my wife. And then my wife, Liza, and Kimberly started up a conversation.
She does that.
I think Kimberly just said to Liza, like, what does he do? I was just stood there. What does he do? And she said, he helps people quit alcohol. And then she's like, what? Wow. She's like, you need to speak to this guy. You need to speak to my dad. You need to speak to my husband. And then I'm like, okay, then I get in touch with her. And then I realize you've got Declan. And then I realize she's in LA. Then I'm like, well, we need to get together and go to a trampoline park. And she's like, yeah, we'll make that happen. And I'm like, we're going to have to do together. Yeah, you're going to have to make that happen. And that is uncomfortable in the beginning. But then, and that uncomfortableness is you see somebody that you have an energetic connection with. And now in that moment, you have to do something about it. Otherwise, they disappear. Like they just mosey on and off they go. So, in this aspect, it wasn't me actually connecting with Kim. It was Kim connecting with me. I don't think she would have connected with me if I had this kind of like the energy that I had when I was 30, 31, 32, maybe. She would be a bit like, I don't know about this guy. But instead she was like, oh, this guy's pretty interesting to get to know. So, yeah, I think networks are really important. And I do transcribe to the theory that once you begin to change, something happens, man. I don't know what it is, but something happens.
You magnetize.
Yeah, and you have to take advantage of that. Not only does it happen, you have to take advantage of those opportunities. Whether, like right now, I have a decision to make whether I live in LA or Cardiff. And if I think about the fact that, when I was at my lowest low, I was just a complete mess, right? And I needed someone to help me. So when I think to myself, where are the complete messes in the world? Like they need my help. Are they more in LA or they're more in Cardiff? I think, we all know the answer to that one. One final question.
Do we?
Well, no, I'm guessing. One question that intrigues me. You are married to Mrs. Sparkly Pants, and she's like into everything, and she's got meaning and purpose. She's got drive, she's got passion, she's got goals, she's got things she wants to do. You have got drive, passion, meaning and purpose, goals, the things you want to do. You both want to make a difference in the world, and then you've got little Declan, and then a Declan brother or sister coming along the way, right?
Yep.
How do both of you get what you want out of that relationship? How does that work? Because in our relationship, my relationship with Liza, I got my meaning and purpose, and I'm running, doing all my things. Liza's taking a back seat to raise Zia, and now she's thinking about what am I going to do, meaning and purpose, but it's very lopsided. So it's still, my life revolves around Lee, not necessarily balanced. So I'm really intrigued. How do you make that a success?
Well, it's openness and honesty, because people don't say what they mean or what they need. They don't ask for that. And that causes resentment down the road. That's what a lot of the women were talking about. Oh my God, he doesn't see me or doesn't care. It's like, he's showing you love every day. He's just doing it in a different language, and you're not respecting that language. So it's like, if you're connecting, then you can actually have the conversations. That's why I say, you need to learn as much as you can, because the more knowledge you have, the more you can deconstruct everything. So if you know somebody's NLP strategies, their BANKCODE, their love languages, their Enneagram, all this stuff, it's all tweaks. And it's like, oh, I know why you made that decision. I know why you're acting this way. I know why this happens. So that's being a sleuth, basically, for each other. Excuse me. So when Kim and I, we can speak, our fights, which are very few and far between, they're really heated discussions about how to improve each other. I mean, seriously. In the end, it's like, God, I'm so upset because of this, and I'm striving for this. But it's because I am striving to connect and communicate, and we're not quite speaking the same language. And sometimes we're speaking exactly the same. We're speaking totally different languages, but saying exactly the same thing. And like, why are we upset at each other about this? We both want the same thing. We're both asking for exactly the same thing. It's just different languages. And that's usually where communication and connection come in. That's where my forte is, to go, okay, wait a second. What exactly is it you want, and what exactly is it I want? And once you write it down and figure it out, you're like, same damn thing. Why are we fighting? It's ridiculous. So I think that's where it comes in, is we really discuss things, anything out in the open, because I know what happens if you let it simmer and get infected for years, and then suddenly that thing is ripped off and there's divorce, bankruptcy, everything's gone. Whereas if you do it a little bit at a time, it's like, oh, it's a little rug burn. Oh, no big deal. That's just fine. A little bitty cut. That's like, it hurts for a minute or two. Band-Aid, we're done, and we're good, and we're strong. And that's, most people just let it simmer and get infected, and they don't do the triage, the little first aid that needs to be done now. And then it's major surgery down the road, and it's awful.
It's like Kaizen on your relationships. I like the way that you used the word openness and honesty. Mm-hmm. I've been reading a book called Getting Relationships Right by Melanie Joy. She's going to be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks. And in Melanie's book about relationships, she says two of the most important factors, a bit like yours, are security and trust. Mm-hmm. So your partner needs to feel secure and security in the relationship, and they also need to feel like they can trust you.
Yes.
And then if you follow that logic through, the only way you build security and trust is by having communication and talking to each other. And because if you don't talk to each other, that breeds mistrust and you feel a lack of security, which then leads to defensiveness behavior and arguments and fighting and stuff. So,
yes.
I'm always saying to people, these two things. One is, we can work on ourselves, and we can do the personality testing, like you say, have a look at the 5 languages of love, and then say, okay, I can tweak the way that I'm talking. But another really good thing is, I'm going to start to I'm going to think business here, and I'm going to say to my husband, right, every night we're having a meeting.
Yeah,
right. We're having a meeting. Here's a talking pen. I'm going to have the talking pen. You're going to shut the fuck up. Then I'm going to give you the talking pen, and I'm going to shut up. Right. But we need to do this because we don't have any discipline in our relationship. And then once we do get discipline, we don't need a talking pen. Right. But I think there's two things: working on ourselves and treating your life a little bit like a business sometimes.
Well, when you say that, it's interesting because I put that in my book, and it's something I've been teaching for years. It's straight out of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Dr. John Gray, he says the couch time. And it's scientifically proven that, let's say at the end of the day, you both come home and you have couch time. You have 20 minutes. And basically, this is 20 minutes for the guy to shut up. It really is. Because, you let her talk for about, it's literally about 20 minutes. She needs to debrief. And the thing I tell guys, it's like, guys, shut up. And guys want to immediately, that protector and the provider and everything, they want to fix it all. And I tell them, don't. She's doing it fine herself. She's a big girl. She can take care of herself. She is doing that for herself right now by you listening. And she is decompressing. Now, guys decompress different. That's why they have the man cave and they go watch the news or whatever, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But, they do something else. And it's an interesting thing because we did that for years and we don't really have the time situation to do it now. We're on a different level of that. We do it constantly, but you take that time and it not only helps her decompress, it helps you connect better. Because if you listen as a man and don't try to fix it all, then you're going to learn so much. And I tell guys one of the biggest, the biggest tool you have is silence. Just shut up. And at the end, here's the big question. I always tell guys, like, do you want me to just listen or do you want me to help or give my opinion? Ask that question. She'll tell you. She'll say, just listen. You go.
You just helped me tremendously there because I often get stuck in, I have to listen because that's what I need to do right now. That's what she needs. What I've never thought about before with as much clarity as you just given me is I need to listen so I can learn.
Yes.
I never thought about that before. So thank you for that. She's
telling you. And one thing that whenever we get to the end, if you want me to, I'll send people to a place where they can get some tools for themselves. But it's that part where we listen so that we can talk next rather than listen to listen. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. Just be there.
Liza just knows. Liza just says, you've been thinking what to say for the last 20 minutes, haven't you? And I'm like, fuck, you caught me again. But for me, like, communication is the most challenging thing that I've ever encountered. Like, how to be a world-class communicator is just the hardest thing ever. But you just never give up. You just keep going. You keep failing. You don't turn that failure into shame. A little bit of guilt, but just get over it. You're in the arena. You're kind of getting bloody. You're doing that stuff, and your wife can see you are. She can see you working your nuts off, even though you're cocking up every now and then. That's entirely different to just hiding away in the cave. Like, I can't really go out there because it's too bright,
Well, remember, and we've heard this on so many different places, but we're in the personal growth arena, so we've heard it. A lot of people haven't. It's like, I have a 2-year-old. When he was learning to walk and he'd fall down, I wouldn't say, okay, that's enough. That's it. Give it up. You're never going to do that. He stands up again and we go, way, woohoo. Like he's learning to go to the bathroom.
Dude, I read your Twitter. Like, it's like, Declan just had a big shit in the toilet.
Yeah.
He didn't even do the potty.
He peed in the toilet. It's like the coolest thing. It's wonderful. And when we have a failure, we beat ourselves up about it. The kid doesn't. He cries for a second, goes, hey, oh, look. Off they go. And we need to be like that in business. I had a failure. I had this deal that went south. Okay, great. Let's go. Go to the next one. That one's going to work. That one's going to work. That one's going to work. That one might not, but that one's going to work.
Sia did it yesterday. We was going down a hill. She said, this is boring. Let's play catch. And she ran down this hill. And I'm like, she's going to fall. She always falls. She fell, cut her knees again, always cutting her knees. Gets up, screaming, cries. And what I love about it is she won't remember. So the next time she goes that hill, she'll run again because she's got no kind of like mental, psychological connection to it. She'll just run again and hurt her knees again and run again. And I love that so much. Like they are our greatest teachers, Spike, aren't they?
In many ways, And then you know what? She's going to run, and then she's not going to fall.
Yeah. Good point.
And that's what's going to be so cool about it. And she'll like, oh yeah, I think I hurt my knees a while back. Whatever. Whee!
Yeah, I'll take it.
And that's something that we have to learn to get past.
So, Spike, thank you very much for being a guest. Just want to honor you for being very open and very honest today. I really appreciate it. I think you've given off a wealth of advice, most importantly, a wealth of inspiration, which is what I asked you on it for. And where can people find you and all that kind of razzmatazz?
Okay. Well, real simple. I have it's spikespencer.com. I have pretty much everything there. And I have under my coaching tab, I offer for free. There's an NLP test. It's PDF. Take it. Do what you want with it. You can crack your B.A.N.K personality code, which talks to you about values. It's incredibly valuable. I'm a trainer in that. And also a link to your 5 love languages. Those are the 3 that I have found that have been the most important, at least in my life. And anybody I talk to, it's usually you figure those 3 out and you are way ahead of the game.
Okay, Spank. Everybody check that out. That's spikespencer.com. Spike, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate our time together.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Addiction podcast. And before you bugger off and go listen to someone more important than me like Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan, I've got a few things to tell you about. First and foremost, if you really like the show, please go to your podcast platform, rate and review it. Give it a 5-star review. Tell everyone how great I am. I'll be really, really appreciative. Secondly, if you want to learn more about the work that we're doing here at 1000dayssober.com, then head to that website, 1000dayssober.com. You can learn how to get involved in this amazing project to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol for 1000 days and beyond, okay? Get over there, get involved. We will provide you with a tremendous support system and world-class workshop experience called the Strive Sobriety System, okay? It's catered to hit you at all stages of this sobriety journey. So if you're like contemplating whether or not it's right for you to stop drinking, don't worry, we've got your back. We'll hit you on that. If you've been stopped drinking for now 7 days, 8 days, and you want to make an even bigger inroads, we've got you. If you've actually stopped drinking for 3-4 years, but you still want to be amongst a community of people who don't drink alcohol and you want to enrich your life and live a fulfilled life, we've got your back as well. So get over to www.1000dayssober.com, okay, and join our Strive support system. It is amazing. You will love it. If you want to follow us on social, you can find us at 1000dayssober.com on Instagram and 1000dayssober.com at YouTube, where you can watch all of these podcasts in the flesh rather than just listening to them. Without further ado, I'm going to shut the hell up and leave you in the capable hands of yourself. Thanks for listening.